Hey guys, hope everybody's doing okay. What we're going to do right now is take a look at how you guys are going to complete the chemical and physical changes post-lab analysis section of that lab. Okay, this is something we would normally do in school, but you guys will do it as part of the asynchronous at-home assignment for today. All right, so we would start out usually in school with a little warm-up, looking at some of these particle diagrams, and then you guys would get together with your lab group and you would work through the rest. So I'm going to go through some of the warm-up component with you just so you can get an idea for how this works, and then you'll be able to hopefully and successfully go through the rest of the post-lab and do that on your own. Okay, so I'm going to just change the screens around a little bit here and show you what this is all about. Okay, so I would normally give you guys a bunch of cards like this, and there would be like A through H or something like that. And you guys would have to figure out what each card is. Okay, like is it an element? Is it a compound? Is it a mixture? Is it a solid, liquid, or gas? Right? What state of matter it is as well. And what are some examples of that? So here's just one of them. I'm not going to do all of them. I'm just going to try to keep this short so you can get the idea here. I would give you this card, take a look at it, and you'd ask yourself, okay, what state of matter is this at least? And obviously by taking a look at that, all the particles are pretty close together, they're organized, so you would definitely say it's a solid. And then, how can we take that another step further? Is it an element, compound, or a mixture? And if you look at it, all of the atoms are exactly the same, so this is going to be a solid element. All right? So you'd put that card next to it. And then you'd look through the other cards and see if there's an example of a solid element, and you'd go through and you'd see that copper is an example. So you would have put letter B, solid element, copper, on your desk, and then you would have lined up the other ones. Okay? So on that post-lab analysis, you guys are going to look at things that are similar to this, and they're going to represent stations from the chemical physical changes lab that you completed in school. Pay attention to the directions because the lab had 10 sections, 10 parts, and there are not 10 diagrams. Okay, they only represent certain stations that you guys completed in the lab. So make sure you take a look at what ones we're actually focused on, and that'll make it a little bit easier for you to classify which one's which. Okay, let's take a look at a few more of these real fast. Move it out of the way. Here's another one that you would have done on that warm-up. Okay, letter C. And again, what would you do here? You would say, okay, is this a solid, liquid, or gas? And obviously this is a liquid. You can see it's in a little more spread out, unorganized form compared to the last one we had. And then you'd ask yourself, is it an element, compound, or mixture? And if you look at this, it's clearly not an element because we have two or more different atoms being involved. It's definitely a compound, right? Every one of these molecules here is the same. So here's a compound, right? And then here's another one, here's another one. They're all the same, okay? So it's definitely a liquid compound. And then you'd go through and try to find some examples of that, and one of them would be rubbing alcohol, right? So you saw the difference between a solid and a liquid, right? And we knew that already. So, here are your cards here. So your solid was the first one we did, and then here's our liquid. You can see the difference in how they're organized there. A couple more. Two more, actually. Okay, it's something like this. So again, you figure out what you have here. Well, you have two liquids, right? And it looks like, if you recognize this from biology, water is in that shape, right? So that's definitely some water here. And then you have something moving around in it. So it looks like something's probably dissolved in that, right? So you would find a card that says dissolved in water. And it's a compound dissolved in water because you can see, obviously, the other part here you see is a compound, two or more different atoms combined. And an example of that, sugar water. Okay, so you might see some of these similarities on the lab that you're going to work on in the next couple minutes here. So if you see something like this, reference this video if you need to. If you see something like this, it's a compound dissolved in water, or something dissolved in water. All right? And finally, last one I'll go through and show you here, 'cause some of the other ones are a little repetitive. One more. So you have two states of matter here, right? You have a solid at the bottom, and you have a liquid at the top here. It looks like water. So it looks like something may have been in the solid form, and it sank. Like it looks like it definitely didn't dissolve here, right? Dissolving would have looked like this, right? You can definitely see a difference here. So we're not dissolved. We're just settling to the bottom. So a solid settling to the bottom here that's what it looks like what we have. And then there's water up here above it. So this looks like a solid compound dissolved in liquid water, obviously. And an example of that may be sand and water, or maybe some precipitate, right? Where you have your solid sinking to the bottom. So this is hopefully this will help you as you go through the post-lab questions. You just annotate it in Google Classroom or however you want to do that, and then submit it. You can insert text boxes to explain your answer. Just make sure you're concise, okay? You'll classify things as element, compound, or mixture, what state of matter they are, and then you'll go ahead and figure out what part of the lab it's from. So let me just try to show you the first one. Okay, and I think you could see the screen pretty well here, hopefully. So here's the first one you guys have to do. If you look at the lab, it does say these are procedures 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 9. Okay, so all we have here are those stations of the lab represented here. So you take a look at the first one, okay, and it has a couple components here. So it has what phase or what state of matter is this. So if you look at it and you compare it to this side, you can definitely see that this is going to be in the solid state. Okay, so you would just have solid. Do your best with the formatting. It might be better than what I'm doing here. And this is clearly a compound. So you'd have compound. Okay, then you go over here and it looks like you have the same compound, right? And what phase is this? Well, this is definitely not a solid anymore. This looks like a liquid. Okay, so you got to think, okay, I went from a solid compound to a liquid compound. What station is that, right? What lab procedure was that? And is it a chemical or physical change? So if you go through the list up here, which one of those do you think went from a solid compound and melted basically to a liquid compound? And if I remember correctly, I believe that's station number 4, okay, with the paradichlorobenzene. So you would put station 4 here, and then go back to what you wrote about it. So you said that was a physical change. How do you know it's chemical or physical? Here's where you want to make sure you have enough detail. So melting, right, is a sign of a physical change. So the paradichlorobenzene melted. Okay, so that's all you really need to put there for that one. And I think it represents procedure number 4 because this can be more of your explanation here. Melting represents a physical change, and that's really because the chemical composition remains the same, right? Okay, there you go. So, make yours look a little nicer, I guess, but get the idea. Okay, so I did the first one for you, and now you guys have to go through and do the rest of them. I think you'll be fine. So you'll go and scroll through the rest, and we've done station 4, so that one's done. So the rest of these are only 2, 3, 6, 7, or 9. Okay? Hopefully you wrote down some good observations during the lab, and you can easily figure out which one's which. When you're done, submit it in Google Classroom, and we'll be good to go. Okay? Alright guys, if you have any questions, let me know, but hopefully you find some success with this and it all makes sense to you. Alright, see ya.